And when we came up with Marilyn Manson and Daisy Berkowitz, that was too funny. So when we got everybody else to be a part, anybody else to be a part of the band, they adopted the same names in a similar way, like Olivia Newton-Bundy and Zsa Zsa Speck. And I think I confessed to him that my first masturbation experience was with Olivia Newton-John, and so he just said, you know, this is going to be your name. What do you think? And that was perfect for me because, you know, that worked. I was into Volkswagens too, which, you know, Ted Bundy's into Volkswagens, so so that worked out good. And you know, he just kind of kept that going with everybody's names. I really don't know the stories why he picked the other female names for the other people. I don't know if they've had experiences of masturbation with with those celebrities or not.
Well, one of the points of the name was to almost a mockery of controversy, a mockery of the phoniness of show business, you know. But I thought it was interesting to take those two because of their history in popular culture, how America has put them on the same status. They're equally memorable, you know, for their own separate reasons.
I think the original defining concept of Marilyn Manson as a band and as a persona, if you like, is one of contrasts. You have one of the world's principal icons of sexuality, of the sex kitten personified in Marilyn Monroe, and against that you have what's effectively became a sort of secular version of Satanism in the form of Charles Manson. You don't just get the contrast. What Manson was also interested in was the way in which kids were increasingly looking at serial killers as almost icons.
People love reading about serial killers. People love to read about ex-models. You know, people knew them. The names were already there. And it just put a little, you know, ring in person's head. And, you know, the kids are into anything evil.
Getting a gig at Churchill's, a small venue in Miami, everything was ready for Marilyn Manson and the spooky kids to take the stage for the very first time.
It was late winter 1990. We had a small body of songs together with the four-piece setup and a drum machine. And we had our first show April 28th, 1990 at Churchill's Hideaway down in Miami.
When we were opening for a band called The Goods, which were mainstream, kind of almost a pop rock. And here we are just, you know, very underground. I know we went to, I was just graduated cosmetology school, so we went back to my school and we just got like all the used mannequin heads so we could place them on stage, and we would, you know, put little X's on their foreheads and stuff like that. It was very low budget. We had a drum machine. Churchill's in itself is a very small kind of just, you know, it's a dive bar that bands like to play at.
Went out to Churchill's as a small, very unique pub, believe it or not, in Miami, English pub. And I was just got off the road and I went to have a beer there and see my friend, the owner, Dave Daniels, and I saw Marilyn on stage for the first time. It was a scary experience, basically because Marilyn, it was very noisy, very raw. Marilyn didn't have a drummer, and I felt that it was an experience that I didn't want to experience again, so to speak.
I think it went over fairly well. Brian had extreme stage fright, and he continued to have that throughout our times playing together. He would, we'd be walking on stage, and he'd be throwing up as he was walking on stage. I mean, there was times that, you know, we're starting a song, and he was nowhere to be found, and he was like, okay, is he going to come out and, you know, and sing or not? And but Churchill's was definitely, you know, you kind of knew after playing Churchill's that there's something there. It definitely could work, and it had to be refined, and you could see the potential behind it, and you could see Brian's character starting to evolve at that time.
After only a few gigs, Olivia Newton-Bundy and Zsa Zsa Speck left the band. Replacing Bundy on bass was Gidget Gein, who would become a legend of the band's early years.
I used to see Manson out at clubs, like, a lot, and we'd always look at each other, like the girls at the prom, like, ooh, what's she in that dress? She, you know, catty glances, that sort of thing. And then I was at a Love and Rockets show, and I got dragged out of there by the cops, like in Hogtied, and he saw that, and so then there was another incident with it, again, that band Saigon Kick played, and I like spit in the guy's face. It was a big scene, broke out, and so he saw me like at clubs all the time, like getting into trouble and doing all this and that with like crazy hair and makeup and nutty clothes, and so I guess that like attracted him. And then I met him at some club in Miami, I think it was the Kitchen Club, and he came up to me and he says, oh, hey, I got this band, you know, I might need a bass player, would you be into it? And I said, no, I'm a guitar player, I'm playing hardcore, I don't think you can handle it. You know, he's like, no, just come and check it out. So he gave me a tape, and it was brilliant. It was like so lo-fi and arty, very creative. I never heard anything like it. And I was like, wow, this is boss. So I went to see them play, and he came up to me again and said, look, we don't like this bass player. Come on, play for us. I said, I don't know. I'll check it out. So they got like the 9 Inch Nails gig where they opened up for him, and they wanted me to play that show. So I'm like, that sounds cool, you know, I'll try it. So I joined the band, and we decided to, like, you know, I needed a name. So I came up with the Gein part first, because I was always influenced by Ed Gein. You know, he was the guy in the 50s that Psycho and Silence of the Lambs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on. And also my stepdad grew up in that town where that happened in Wisconsin. He used to always tell me stories about it. And I was like, man, this guy's crazy, you know, and he was like digging up graves, peeling off their skin, wearing their skin as clothes, and I'm like, well, I'm kind of like a borderline transvestite, and I'm into like horror movies, and like Ed Gein's perfect for me. And then Gidget just was like a cute name, you know, to put the two together. It means nothing. It's like I was into the Gidget movies or anything. So the Scott would come over to my house and show me some bass lines and this and that, showed me like 3 or 4 songs that they had. And then we wrote some more songs together. Then we played the 9 Inch Nails gig, and that was like my first gig in the band, like in front of like thousands of people. It's like, this is cool, you know. So that's why I did that.
You know, Gidget, I was just a huge fan of. When I went to go see him, I was sitting there watching him. He was just outrageous looking. You know, he had the pantyhose, he had the colorful shirts. You know, he had the Gene Simmons guitar pick. You know, he had the green dreadlocks, you know. All the girls loved him.
Stephen Beer, a.k.a. Madonna Wayne Gacy, also joined the new lineup. Intended as a keyboard player, Wayne Gacy arrived just in time for the band's first break.
Stephen came into the band just about springtime, and he started out more as a fixture. I mean, I think there were a few shows where he was just on stage playing with Army men. In fact, the one show in particular, July 4th, 1990, we got a spot opening for 9 Inch Nails at a place called Club New down in Miami Beach. At that show, Stephen he had this weird costume on. I think it was kind of army, like crazy army man, but with like a leather jacket, and he had a helmet with a flag in it. And he played with army men and threw cold cuts at the crowd.
They were the opener band. Nobody knew who they were.